The next morning, their blindfolds were removed so as to enable them eat the food they were offered. And that was when Ebube saw her cousin Ifechi there with her and the other girls. Ebube was shocked to see Ifechi. After that, Ifechi and Ebube held hands again to give it one more try. And immediately they chanted the last sentence, they both disappeared and found themselves back home right in their compound. Once upon a time lived two girls, Ifechi and Ebube. Ifechi and Ebube were cousins and both lived in the same compound, though in separate buildings. This is because their mothers were married to two brothers. The compound which they live in is a family compound. Ebube's father was the eldest and first son of the family and had also married first. His younger brother, who happened to be Ifechi's father, married 2 years after his older brother married. Now, Ebube's mother, whose name is Lebeshi, was not able to conceive on time in her early years of marriage. Whereas Ginika, Ifechi's mother, the second wife married into the family, conceived and bore Ifechi within the first year she was married. So, because of this, Ifechi's grandmother mocked her son's first wife for not being able to conceive and give the family a grandchild, despite being the first to have been married into the family. Well, 2 years after Ifechi was born, Lebechi eventually conceived and bore Ebube. Now, because of how Ifechi and Ebube's grandmother treated Lebechi when she had not conceived and had showed Ginika love instead, Lebechi despised her mother-in-law and also her sister-in-law, Ifechi's mother. When Ifechi and Ebube were kids, Lebechi did everything she could to prevent her daughter from playing or having anything to do with her cousin Ifechi. Also, apart from being the first son, Ebube's father was the wealthy one in the family who helped his younger brother, Ifechi's father. Lebechi, on several occasions in the past, tried to convince her husband to stop helping his younger brother because of the hatred she had for the wife. But because of their mother, Ebube's father continued helping his younger brother. However, when her mother-in-law passed away, Lebechi was finally able to make her husband succumb to her demand. Lebechi used that opportunity to ridicule Ginika and her husband for being poor. She was also able to make Ebube dislike Ifechi, and Ginika in retaliation also now considered Lebechi as her enemy. And so, that was how Ifechi and Ebube grew up to be rivals just like their mothers. Along the line, their fathers also passed away, and the rivalry between both mothers and daughters became intense even the more. They fought and competed about everything. If Ifechi buys a new clothes, Ebube would buy double of the same clothes. If one of them achieved an important milestone, the other would work to achieve something similar or bigger. And this went on for many years. There was a woman called Madam Cash. Madam Cash is from Ifechi and Ebube's village, but had been away from the village for a long time. Madam Cash and her husband were in America for a long time, but now she had returned to her village to empower the young girls of the village. Every quarter, Madam Cash would take some group of girls to the city to work, and those who did well would later be sent to America to work and to also further their studies. Now, from the previous year, Madam Cash started this her empowerment program. Ifechi and Ebube have been struggling to be picked by Madam Cash and had not been lucky. One afternoon, Ifechi and her mother were having lunch together outside their house. They were seated in their own part of the compound and their own building, which is directly opposite and facing that of Ebube and her mother. Suddenly, Ebube ran into the compound, calling out to her mother in excitement. Mama, Madam Cash have picked me to be part of the girls going with her to America in the next bash," Ebube said. Immediately she came face to face with her mother. Lebeshi was happy with the news she just received. Mother and daughter danced and rejoiced. This news, however, made Ifechi and her mother, who were seated at the other end of the compound, sad and uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, Ebube and her mother knew that Ifechi and her mother were watching, so they made gestures to mock Ifechi while they danced. Ifechi and her mother went inside their house, unable to stand the mockery. Ifechi felt pained because she was actually at Madam Cash's place that morning to beg once again to be picked, but Madam Cash had said no to her. There is no way that Ebube would go to America before you. You must go before her, or at least go the same time, Ginika told her daughter. And with that, mother and daughter went back to see Madam Cash. They begged and begged, trying to convince Madam Cash to take Ifechi along. But Madam Cash told them that she already had the complete number of girls she would be taking with her for that bash, and also had already prepared a document for Ifechi, and that it would be difficult to make any changes, and that Ifechi should wait till the next batch. So Ifechi and her mother left Madam Cash's place disappointed. The main day came so fast for Ebube to travel with Madam Cash, and she did alongside the other girls that were picked. Now, Madam Cash was not really a good person like she made everyone believed. She was into human trafficking. She took girls from different villages and sent them to America for prostitution after keeping and grooming them in the city for a period of 2 months. So, immediately Ebube and the other girls arrived in the city, they were blindfolded and thrown into a dark room. On the evening of the day they arrived, and while still blindfolded, they were told the real reason why they were brought there, and were told to behave themselves and cooperate accordingly, else they will be killed and their bodies will be disposed of in a dam. Ebube and the other girls cried all night, disturbed and worried by the fate that had befallen them. The next morning, their blindfolds were removed so as to enable them eat the food they were offered, and that was when Ebube saw her cousin Ifechi there with her and the other girls. Ebube was shocked to see Ifechi because, to the best of her knowledge, and even to the last minute of that morning before she left for Madam Cash's pickup point, she heard Ifechi and her mother still lamenting about how Madam Cash was unfair to them. Well, what had happened was that immediately Ebube left the compound to go join the other girls who were about to travel with Madam Cash. Ginika called Ifechi, her daughter, inside. The dress Ebube had worn that morning, Ifechi also had the same dress, which was only slightly different in color. Remember that in the course of their past competitions, they were buying similar clothes amongst other things. So, Ginika made Ifechi wore the same clothes and took her to Madam Cash's takeoff points and made her enter the second vehicle after the first vehicle, which Ebube boarded, had left few minutes before the second one. Ifechi and her mother lied about Ifechi's identity to Madam Cash's men who were organizing the girls. Ifechi pretended to be Ebube. They also lied that Ebube had dropped off from the first bus to ease herself and was left behind, and that was why she was now there to join the second vehicle. The men could not really picture Ebube's face, but the dress was familiar as they remembered that one of the girls from the first vehicle had worn a dress like that. So they allowed Ifechi in. It was when they got to their hideout and during the process of blindfolding all the girls that they realized that they had an additional girl who was wearing something similar with one of the other girls. but they could not afford to let Ifechi go back, so they kept her with the other girls. Now, Ifechi and Ebube kept staring at each other without saying a word from that morning that their blindfolds were taken off till the afternoon that they were blindfolded again. The morning of the second day, their blindfolds were taken off again so they would eat. Whilst they ate, Ifechi silently crawled to meet Ebube and spoke to her. When my father was alive, he told me about a certain gift in the family. He said that in our family, if two siblings or relations who are in trouble hold hands together and chant some particular words, they would disappear from the scene of the trouble. Ifechi told Ebube, whispering in order not to attract the attention of the men who kept watch on them. Ebube also confirmed that her own father told her the same thing. It was a generational gift Chukwu, the creator of the universe, blessed their family with since the time of their forefathers. I know we do not see eye to eye, but we are both in trouble now, so we can as well hold hands together and chant those words so that we can be saved, Ifechi told Ebube. And so, for the first time since they were toddlers, the cousins held each other's hand and silently chanted the words the way their fathers taught them. But unfortunately, it did not work. They were about to try again, but just then they were separated and blindfolded again by the watch guards who entered suddenly. The next day, the cousins decided to give it a try again, and still it did not work. Your hand is cursed, probably. I guess that was why it failed, Ifechi told Ebube. You must be mad for saying such, Ebube said, and the two girls began fighting. They were separated by the other girls just before the watch guards came in to restore calmness. As a punishment for fighting, Ifechi and Ebube were blindfolded for 2 days without food whilst the other girls ate. I guess it is because of the hatred and disunity that exists amongst you both may be the reason why whatever these gifts your family is blessed with isn't working for you. Nkechi, one of the girls with them, who knows about the feud and the rivalry between the cousins and their mothers, said to Ifechi and Ebube on the 4th day. She told them that the rivalry that existed between them was long overdue and advised them to embrace peace, especially now that they are all in trouble and would need each other's support. And for the first time, Ifechi and Ebube realized that they were actually exhausted from the unnecessary rivalry between them. So, they embraced each other as Nkechi urged them to. They were still blindfolded, and so Nkechi helped them to get closer. As they hugged, they both muttered these words: I forgive you and I love you because you are my sister. They cried for some time while still hugging each other. After that, Ifechi and Ebube held hands again to give it one more try. And immediately they chanted the last sentence, they both disappeared and found themselves back home right in their compound. Ifechi and Ebube narrated everything to their mothers and to the whole village. Madam Cash was reported to the authorities of the state and she was apprehended, and the other girls who were captured alongside Ifechi and Ebube were saved. Ifechi and Ebube thanked Nkechi, who helped them realize the dangers of hatred and rivalry and the importance of working in love and cooperation, because with that they are stronger and can achieve greater success. Lebeshi and Ginika also learned from their children's story and also mended their sour relationship. And from that time, the family lived in harmony with each other and happily ever after. The end. I hope you enjoyed the story and have learned a thing or two from it. I would love to know. Please leave a comment. Thank you for watching and see you in our next video. Bye.